Chinese individuals are storming the Bank of China because they have been unable to withdraw their life savings for months. The crisis has now extended across the nation. Evidence from the ongoing fraud probe suggests the Hainan Bank scheme perpetrator may have left the country and acquired foreign citizenship. As the story gains traction in China's social media and mainstream media, the government is refusing to refund the $6 billion that mysteriously vanished from bank balances. But what is all this fuss about? What is really happening in China, and why is the country going into a financial crunch? Let's briefly review the plan that set off this entire scare before moving on to the investigation and the fugitive. China's financial institutions are under increasing stress. The four largest state-owned banks are now seen as less secure places to store money. It's highly conceivable that China's financial systems will completely collapse. When people stop putting their money in banks, it can have serious consequences for the economy and the world at large. A number of rural lenders in the province's central region have been implicated in a long-running banking scandal. In addition to the societal unrest, riots, and agitation on the streets, $6 billion in deposits vanished. Consequences outside the financial history are possible as a result of the crackdown on the sector, which has sent shockwaves across the world's most valuable and powerful economy. Banks in China also evade regulations by soliciting deposits from customers in other countries through online advertising. In April, as COVID struck, the financial systems began to collapse, and in order to prevent insolvency and subsequent panic, banks had to halt withdrawals. Banks said they had shut down their internet services for maintenance, but it has been months and they still haven't returned. Withdrawals from the ATM are being denied for some reason, even though the depositor has sufficient funds. When it detects suspicious activity on a card, it immediately disables it. All of this is an effort to prevent clients from accessing their own funds. Customers have been unable to access their money for 3 months, prompting a number of demonstrations and other forms of action. However, this has not yet proven to be fruitful. Rather than trying to solve the issue, the Chinese government is trying to shut the people down. A large group of demonstrators, many of whom were understandably enraged, were manhandled by the police recently. After investigating, authorities discovered that Hainan's New Fortune Group was a stakeholder in each of the 4 banks. They were the most stringent in their adherence to the banking regulations. Due to legal restrictions, financial institutions in a current area must have a physical presence there. In addition to expanding the types of customers they accept, they have opted to use web ads to drum up more deposits. Additionally, they use deceptive advertising to trick buyers. Many customers who banked with these institutions did so because they advertised interest rates of 4% or higher on deposits. Yet these customers weren't actually establishing conventional bank accounts. Financial instruments were, in reality, the target of their investment. Customers would find out these distinct facts down the road. Be sure to keep these things in mind as the CCP's involvement in this matter grows. Not only did these fresh deposits bypass the banks, but they were advertised as going there. Bank personnel were in on the Hainan New Fortune Group's scheme to divert customers' deposits to the benefit of the shareholders. As soon as the authorities learned of these potentially harmful actions, they launched an investigation. One executive was apprehended and the company's chairman is missing. He is believed to be in the US with customers' deposits totaling $6 billion. This is when the authorities' problem really started to get worse. Even if they wanted to, they have no way of getting their money back. Most of the victims' initial deposits were recovered by the government of Madoff. However, China's situation is still so bad that it has become hopeless at this point. After this came out in the open, banks quietly disabled their online services, causing significant inconvenience for their clientele. Those who were in another country had no way to get their money out of the bank. A number of depositors made the trip to Hainan to withdraw their funds at this time when they encountered the aforementioned lengthy wait times. Most of these were who had their entire life savings in the banks because they seemed secure. Here we are, at the end of the road, with no other options. Investors have taken to the streets in the hopes of drawing the attention of those who can aid them. Local security squads arrived to disperse the protesters, telling them they were holding an illegal assembly and that they would be arrested if they didn't leave. Videos released later on social media showed the situation escalating into violence. There were reports of fractured bones and eye injuries among the protesters. What happened to government-backed insurance like the FDIC insurance here in the US, which was a question on everyone's mind? Deposits in Chinese banks are protected by the country's own deposit insurance system. A large number of protesters and observers demand to know why the insurance hasn't yet been paid out. But before we all start blaming the CCP here, there is one thing you always need to remember. Only regular deposits are protected by deposit insurance. Investments are not risk-free. The bad news is that all these clients imagined they were making standard deposits and earning 4% interest, finding out too late that they had been tricked. As a result, some clients have gone to court to try and get their money back from financial institutions, as the bank's employees were the ones who had conspired with the Hainan investment group. The courts ruled that the bank could not be held accountable. Financial institutions are advising to get cash out and stash it at home. If you understand how the contemporary banking system works, you can see why this is bad news for an economy. These days, the vast majority of nations use a system of banking known as fractional reserve banking. This system allows the banks to keep a minimum amount from each deposit and invest the rest. It makes a profit on each dollar you deposit, thus sending your bills into a never-ending cycle of giving and taking. And that is how today's general industrial economy functions too. If the bank multiplied your cash with $1,000 in circulation, what occurs now is that all the depositors try to cash out at once. If a large number of consumers attempts to withdraw funds at once, the bank would obviously fail. Everything hinges on being able to trust one another. In order for there to be confidence in the system, people must believe their money is secure in banks. Americans can rest assured that their money is safe with the FDIC, but Chinese citizens are beginning to lose faith in their government's financial systems as bank insurance there refuses to compensate the victims. There is widespread uncertainty about the security of banking institutions. As whispered fear sweeps China, a potential bank run is rising sharply. Restrictions on withdrawals have already been implemented by China's Agricultural Bank of China, the country's third-largest state-owned bank. At this time, users can only withdraw around $150 per day, and virtually all internet activity has ceased. Unless the crisis is managed well, the pressure on China's financial institutions will only intensify as things worsen. The already fragile Chinese economy could take a major hit from this. Of the top 10 most profitable corporations in China, 7 are financial institutions, making them an all-important asset. The government is trying to restore social order by awarding affected citizens with money, but this approach introduces new challenges. The majority of these clients had placed all of their financial resources into these institutions. It was estimated in the millions of dollars by some. So, can $7,400 put these victims at ease? Even if this money is paid, it would be done with tax dollars. But that is also a very controversial debate as to why the whole country's treasury should pay for these funds. This brings us to the end of this video. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and sharing so we can keep bringing more content like this. Also, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time!